Det kan være svært at tro på, hvad man ved. Især når millioner af kroner står på spil. I løbet af de sidste 100 år har asbestfibre været brugt i tusindvis af forskellige produkter i bygningsindustrien, i skibsfarten og i husholdningerne. Det var kendt som et magisk mineral, og brugen af millioner af tons asbest skabte en fremgangsrig og meget indbringende industri. Næsten lige så længe har industrien vidst, at asbest er særdeles farlig for mennesker. Men på trods af den viden, udvikler brugen af asbest sig ikke bare til århundredets største arbejdsmiljøproblem med tusinder af døde, men stoffet blev også en trussel for mange andre. Lige fra bygningsarbejdere og skibsbyggere til husmødre.
In big production at a Rochdale plant is a new material likely to play a useful part in fighting fire. It's an aluminized asbestos cloth. In the safely open spaces of Oulton Park, the county firemen got themselves up like invaders from another planet. 2 gallons of petrol were sacrificed in the good cause, and the stage was set for the drama, Man versus Fire.
Asbest har altid fascineret menneskene. Lige fra man begyndte at udvinde det i Canada i slutningen af det 19. århundrede, har de små mineralske fibre begejstret. Fordi de både var bløde som silke og solide som granit. Og fordi de kunne bruges til så forskellige ting som brandhæmmende tekstiler, isolering og beton.
Asbestos was promoted. The sales pitch was to call it the magic mineral. They mainly were able to sell this because it had very good resistance to chemicals, heat, and it had high tensile strength.
Med industrialiseringen af Europa og Amerika blev asbest uløseligt forbundet med fremskridtets potente symboler. Maskinerne, dampskibene og store bygningskonstruktioner. I begyndelsen af det 20. århundrede markedsføres stoffet som Lady Asbestos, en græsk gudinde med et armeret skjold, der værner om civilisationen. Talrige fabrikker skyder op, og tusinder af arbejdere får beskæftigelse i asbestindustrien. Arbejdsforholdene var, ligesom i mange andre af tidens fabrikker, ekstremt støvede.
We know from the documents that have survived that the conditions were very dusty, and there are stories that workers couldn't see more than 6 to 10 feet in certain parts of the factories. But dust was an accepted fact of life in many industries in those days. Cotton factories were very dusty. The coal mines were even dustier. So asbestos factories were not that unusual in having a dust problem. It was just that asbestos was uniquely dusty and also, as it turned out, uniquely dangerous.
Så tidligt som i 1898 advarer en britisk kvindelig fabriksinspektør mod, hvad hun betegner som det onde støv.
In Britain, the government hired a medical inspector of factories, and under his direction, the lady inspectors of factories went out and did investigations. And one of the things that they reported in the year 1898 was that there were people getting lung disease from working around asbestos, and they recognized that this was a dangerous material. The lady inspectors actually referred to the evil effects of asbestos dust.
I begyndelsen af det 20. århundrede indløber rapporter om hyppige dødsfald blandt asbestarbejdere. En fransk fabriksinspektør konstaterer allerede i 1906 50 dødsfald blandt kvindelige asbestarbejdere. Og i de følgende år forstærkes mistanken om, at asbest er farlig for mennesker. I USA og Canada begynder forsikringsselskaber at dække sig ind mod mulige tab.
By 1918 in the United States, an insurance industry official published a report describing mortality in dusty trades. And in this report, the insurance official said that it was generally the practice of American and Canadian life insurance companies to not sell life insurance to asbestos workers on account of the hazards of their trade, based on reported deaths from such causes as tuberculosis and pneumonia.
Men endnu er man ikke klar over, hvordan asbesten kan skade mennesker. Det er en obduktion af en britisk kvinde, der bidrager til at løse gåden om, hvordan asbest kan være livsfarlig. Sagen bliver samtidig begyndelsen på en årelang kamp mellem industri og asbestofre om ansvar og erstatning.
Nellie Kershaw was a young woman who worked at Britain's leading asbestos company, Turner Brothers in Rochdale. She died in 1924, and it's an important case because it was the first case in which there was an inquest.
Ligsynet af Nellie Kershaw, der bliver indgående beskrevet i den lokale avis Rochdale Observer, viser, at hendes lunger indeholder utallige af de små skarpe fibre. Som mikroskopiske knive har de skåret i lungevævet og forårsaget tusindvis af små ar. Lungen var holdt op med at fungere, og hun døde af kvælning. Doktoren, som foretager ligsynet, beskriver dødsårsagen som asbestforgiftning. Men Turner Brothers afviser diagnosen. Asbest er ikke giftigt, og der findes ingen definition eller viden om en sådan sygdom.
Turner Brothers never accepted responsibility for Nellie Kershaw's death, and basically she was never given any compensation by the company. You must remember that at that time the government compensation scheme had not yet been introduced. So officially she had a disease which didn't exist.
Da Nellie Kershaws enkemand anmoder om hjælp til at dække begravelsesomkostningerne, afviser virksomheden kategorisk. Gør vi det, vil vi skabe præcedens og indrømme ansvaret, noterer Turner Brothers. Selskabet er tydeligvis bekymret over, om enkemandens anmodning kan udløse nye krav fra nuværende og tidligere ansatte. Lægen, der foretog ligsynet, sammenfatter 3 år senere sine iagttagelser i det videnskabelige tidsskrift British Medical Journal, og sygdommen får nu det navn, som skal blive kendt og berygtet af tusinder af ofre de følgende årtier: asbestose.
Following the publication of the Nellie Kershaw case, the British government decided to embark on a survey of asbestosis in the industry, and they examined over 300 workers. And then they reported on this in 1930, showing that over 1/4 of these workers had asbestosis. And the longer they'd worked in the industry, the higher the prevalence of asbestosis.
There were so many workers dying from asbestosis that the government had to intervene. They found that the situation was so disastrous that they needed to introduce specific regulations to compel the factory owners to clean up the factories, and also to offer medical examinations and compensation to affected workers.
Loven, der blev vedtaget i 1931, er den første af sin slags i verden. Men industrien får afgørende indflydelse på lovens endelige udformning.
The industry, for its part, wanted to limit the scope of the law, and they were successful in making it so that the law only applied to the most heavily exposed workers in the manufacturing plants. And this was very helpful to the industry from a marketing standpoint, because the people who use these products, the millions of people in the construction industry and in the shipyards, were not covered at all by these regulations.
The practical uses of asbestos are very numerous. At least 18,000 articles are made of it, ranging from packing for steam engines and linings for friction surfaces to bulkheads for aeroplanes. No, not a member of a secret society, nor a medicine man, but an asbestos shield for firefighting. Asbestos comes into the home in the shape of fireproof curtains and covers, and in a variety of patterns. They are one answer to the problem of the careless smoker. Ash, but no char. If in a playful moment you feel you'd like to make a bonfire of the tablecloth, see that it isn't made of asbestos.
Samtidig med, at industrien udvikler nye asbestprodukter, rapporteres om en ny sygdom blandt asbestarbejderne. Britiske fabriksinspektører mistænker asbesten for at kunne fremkalde lungekræft. Denne mistanke beslutter den amerikanske asbestgigant Johns Manville sig for at afprøve, og i al hemmelighed påbegynder de laboratorieforsøg hvor mus og rotter udsættes for asbest.
The researcher along the way became curious about cancer, and he allowed these animals to live out their full lives. And it turned out that 9 of 11 of these animals in this group developed lung cancer. But the companies kept him from publishing that. He died in 1946, and the new director of the laboratory wrote up the study that had been done by his predecessor. He included reference to tumors and cancer, and the companies who were the sponsors, executive vice presidents and presidents of these companies met in the boardroom at the Johns Manville Corporation in November of 1948, and they sent back directions to the laboratory, take out all reference to cancer and tumors. And the author of the study did just that.
Well, if you pay for research, then you can decide what happens to it. And the simple fact was that usually the industry blocked publication. So there was always this attempt to keep bad news out of the headlines.
This is the Woodbury Gardens development in Long Island, where wide use of asbestos cement shingles is made. And here in the Southern Homes development, these colorful sidewalls add beauty to the community. This contemporary home shows how modern asbestos materials can be adapted to any style or design. Notice how the asbestos cement sidewalls help add dignity and charm. And this is Mrs. Adams. Well, Mrs. Adams, what has been your experience with these asbestos cement sidewalls?
Well, we've been very pleased. And, well, I like the looks of it. And it's never given us any trouble at all.
And so, we suggest you consider this material for the walls of your home. Designed to last a lifetime. A trouble-free lifetime.
Selvom asbestproduktionen stiger stødt op gennem 50'erne, så bliver det sværere for asbestindustrien at fastholde det positive budskab. Uvidende om asbestindustriens forsøg på mus og rotter knap 20 år tidligere, offentliggør britiske forskere i 1955 en undersøgelse, der viser, at lungekræft blandt asbestarbejdere er 10 gange så hyppig som i den øvrige befolkning. Lungekræft er på daværende tidspunkt en kendt bivirkning af tobaksrygning, og opdagelsen giver ikke anledning til nye væsentlige kontrolforanstaltninger eller lovinitiativer. Men da sydafrikanske læger opdager en helt ny type kræft, man kun kan få af asbest, breder bekymringen sig.
What particularly hit the headlines from the mid-1960s and what particularly alarmed people was the fact that you appeared to be able to get mesothelioma from quite trivial doses of asbestos. In other words, a matter of days, weeks or months rather than years. So that people like housewives and school teachers and carpenters could develop mesothelioma, even though they'd never worked in the asbestos industry. And obviously this was particularly alarming, partly because asbestos was so ubiquitous. It was everywhere. Almost everybody has had some dose of asbestos at some time in their lives.
Bekymringen over kræftrisikoen begynder at sætte sig spor blandt aftagerne af asbesten. I november 1965 informerer en fabriksleder på det britiske Turner & Newell sin bestyrelse, at han får daglige henvendelser fra butikker, hospitaler og andre bekymrede brugere, der vil have selskabets forsikring om, at asbest er sikkert at bruge. Nogle af de store kunder falder fra. I 1967 stopper det britiske jernbaneselskab med brugen af asbestisolering. Også internt i industrien vokser bekymringen.
Johns Manville realized, as did some of the other asbestos companies in the United States, that they had enormous potential liabilities over their failure to warn users of these products, and they decided to put on the first generation of mild warning labels where they would say something to the effect that breathing excessive amounts of asbestos dust for long periods of time may cause damage to your health, but at least they wanted to be, legally speaking, covered for the possibility of damage suits.
Men udadtil fastholder industrien, at det er helt forsvarligt at bruge asbest.
The industry in Britain spent a fortune on defending its product and publicising its virtues. For example, one thing that they did was to subsidise a special pull-out supplement in the Times newspaper, which basically described how wonderful asbestos was, how vital it was to the country's economy, and how trivial the health risks were.
I tillægget, der er pakket med optimistiske asbestannoncer, er Times-skribenterne afdæmpet i deres beskrivelse af sundhedsproblemerne i industrien. I visse tilfælde kan man godt udfase en produktion, hvis risikoen er for stor. Men sådan er situationen ikke med asbestproduktionen.
In other words, the industry was so well entrenched, so powerful and so wealthy that it could continue to produce this product even though it was known how dangerous it was.
The use of asbestos in the United States continued to go up through the 1960s. And finally, with the emergence of a strong environmental movement in the late 1960s, we started to have a greater amount of regulation of industry. The Occupational Safety and Health Act was passed in 1970. The Environmental Protection Agency was created, and things started to change.
From 1969 onwards, there was a steady stream of regulations which tightened up the dust exposure limits for asbestos for people who worked in the industry. As regards the industry's reaction, asbestos was rapidly phased out for insulation because that's one area where it's almost impossible to control dust conditions.
One of the things the Environmental Protection Agency did was ban sprayed asbestos insulation, which was used on girders of skyscrapers under construction all over New York and other major cities. And that included the World Trade Center. The World Trade Center actually had sprayed asbestos insulation on the first 40 floors, and then the law was passed, and they stopped using sprayed asbestos for the rest of the building.
Those of you who routinely work with asbestos are probably aware of the hazards, but what about those workers who are indirectly involved with asbestos, who may have been excessively exposed to asbestos dust in the past?
Myndighederne opfordrer nu også til stor forsigtighed i en række brancher, der stadigvæk arbejder med asbestholdige produkter. Denne instruktionsfilm fra 1975 anbefaler som noget helt nyt støvtætte heldragter og åndedrætsværn, når gammel asbestisolering skal udskiftes.
I'm ready to go now, Nancy.
Okay, don't forget to put your respirator on before the rip-out starts. There's an extra one down below.
Oh, sure thing. Thanks.
Og den amerikanske flåde opfordrer i tv-reklamer til sundhedstjek af mennesker, der tidligere har arbejdet med asbest.
One of the materials workers used to build this ship was called asbestos. And after all these years, they found that working around and breathing asbestos may cause bad lung diseases, including cancer. Maybe you worked around asbestos years ago. Maybe you'll get sick, maybe you won't. Don't take any chances.
For tusinder af mennesker kommer advarslen imidlertid for sent. Men de menneskelige konsekvenser af asbesten bliver nu beskrevet i en række tv-programmer, der for første gang fokuserer på ofrenes historier. Et af de mest markante programmer er det britiske Alice, A Fight for Life, der fortæller om adskillige skæbner fra den britiske asbestindustri. En af dem er Alice Jefferson, der som 17-årig havde arbejdet i 7 måneder på en asbestfabrik, og som nu, 30 år senere, kæmper mod en eskalerende lungehindekræft.
Were you ever warned that working there could be dangerous, that you could finish up?
No, we used to fool about. We used to make wigs out of that. You know how you fool about at work? We used to make wigs out of asbestos and put them on his heads and, you know, no. I never thought it was dangerous at all.
A few months ago, Alice's doctor told her she was dying of asbestos cancer.
I had a feeling that I had something serious by then, you know, because I wasn't getting any better. You've come to tell me that I've had it, haven't you? Says yeah. And she says, I said, how long have I got then? It's 3 to 6 months.
Sheila Fenwick never worked with asbestos. Her father just brought asbestos dust home from Turner's, Washington, when she was a child. At 51, she also died of the asbestos cancer, mesothelioma.
I would just like to know how many people Turner and Newell's have killed that don't even know they died of asbestos.
Take Cape Asbestos in East London. Its general manager was Tony Mendel.
How many funerals did you go to during your 12 years at Cape Asbestos?
About 110, I'd say. I kept a black tie in my desk drawer, simply because going to funerals was a dismal part of management of that particular factory.
3 weeks after this interview, Tony Mendel discovered that he too had asbestosis.
I think it brought home to the public two things. One, that asbestos could cause horrifying cancers. And secondly, that not just workers were at risk. And that was the truly alarming thing about it. Also, of course, it emphasised how duplicitous certain asbestos companies had been and how the government hadn't really protected workers or compensated them properly. So that was what made the documentary so shocking.
I begyndelsen af 80'erne falder asbestforbruget markant i både Europa og USA. Mange lande indfører skrappe restriktioner på brugen af asbest, og i tusindvis af bygninger bliver asbesten simpelthen fjernet under et gigantisk oprydningsarbejde. Antallet af asbestofre stiger fortsat, fordi tiden fra man er blevet udsat for asbest, til man faktisk udvikler asbestose eller kræft, kan være helt op til 30 og 40 år. Samtidig betyder den øgede opmærksomhed, at flere og flere kræver erstatning.
There was a lot of worker resistance to the idea of using asbestos. There was consumer reluctance to purchase products containing asbestos. And as far as getting any kind of insurance coverage for companies that were using asbestos, that was becoming extremely difficult. At the same time, there had been at least a couple 100,000 claims filed of people who were claiming that they had developed asbestosis or cancer from the exposure to asbestos, and they were suing these companies for failing to warn them about the hazards of asbestos.
Selvom industrien har haft sikker viden siden slutningen af 30'erne om, at asbest kan forårsage lungekræft, så kommer erstatningssagerne tilsyneladende bag på industrien. Flere virksomheder forsøger at begrænse tabene ved at gå i betalingsstandsning. Blandt andre USA's største asbestproducent, Johns Manville.
Manville Corporation's board of directors has determined that the corporation should file for reorganization under Chapter 11 of the Bankruptcy Act. Though our businesses are in good shape despite the recession, we are completely overwhelmed by the cost of the asbestos health lawsuits filed against us.
Mens oprydningen fortsætter på skoler, offentlige kontorer og i private hjem op gennem 80'erne og 90'erne, forbyder flere og flere lande brugen af asbest. Men antallet af syge og døde fortsætter med at stige. 70'ernes høje forbrug har endnu ikke helt vist sig i dødstallet, der først forventes at toppe omkring år 2015. Og yderligere 100.000 mennesker forventes at dø af asbestose eller lungekræft. Men tragedien fortsætter med uformindsket styrke i den tredje verden. Da asbestindustrien brød sammen i den vestlige verden, blev nye markeder opdyrket i ulandene. Indien er et af de lande, som har et stort forbrug af asbest. Men endnu er det ikke klarlagt, hvor mange mennesker, som vil blive syge.
People will certainly are dying at present and will die in future and have died in the past. But because of lack of data, it is difficult to prove beyond doubt that this is happening. But people are going to die by 2010. 100,000, it's certain. There is no doubt about it.
Siden 1996 har indisk lov forbudt åbning af nye asbestminer, og Indien producerer da også kun en tiendedel af de godt 100.000 tons, som landet bruger hvert år. Langt størstedelen af Indiens asbest leveres af Canada, et land, som ikke længere selv bruger de farlige fibre.
Well, the Canadian approach seems to be entirely hypocritical because they don't use asbestos themselves, but are quite content to export it to other countries. The Canadians are not responsible, nor do they have any influence on what happens in the developing world. They simply ship bags of asbestos fiber to these countries. What happens after that is no concern of the Canadians.
Mens tragedien fortsætter i en række ulande, så har den nået sin foreløbige afslutning i Europa. I 1999 vedtager EU et totalt forbud med virkning fra 2005. Altså mere end 100 år efter, at fabriksinspektørerne i England første gang advarer mod det, man dengang kaldte det onde støv.